Well, hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Nick Blozan, and I'm very excited about our topic today. The topic for today's webinar is VDI, connecting students, teachers, and administrators to applications and data anywhere, anytime. First, a few pieces of housekeeping. First of all, we just want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us for this webinar. We know everybody's busy, so we're going to make this very useful time and fill with lots of information. Second of all, the webinar is being recorded, and we will make that recording available on the Huawei Enterprise USA website in the resources section. So if you have some friends who may have missed the webinar, feel free to send them a link and allow them to listen to the recorded version. Also, as we often like to do, we've sprinkled a few polling questions throughout the presentation. So when we get to those polling questions, we very much appreciate your participation, and we will share the results with the entire audience. So go ahead and vote and let us know what you think about the different questions that we're asking. And then finally, we do want this session to be interactive. So if you have questions about the material that we're presenting here, please enter those in the Q&A panel with your ReadyTalk interface. You'll be able to ask those questions, and we'll handle those all at the end. Co-presenting today is going to be Dave Harmon, who's the president of hvConnections and a true pundit and industry specialist around virtual desktops. So we're very excited to have him, and he'll start talking in just a minute. But before we get to Dave, let's just do a quick run-through of a couple slides about Huawei. First of all, for those of you who aren't familiar with Huawei, we're now a $46 billion company in 2014, and it's just a global powerhouse. I think we're finally starting to get some pretty good name recognition here in the United States, but globally, Huawei provides 45 of the top 50 telecom operators infrastructure gear, and we're doing business in hundreds of countries around the world, and obviously as well in the USA. Our headquarters are in Plano, Texas, and we have over 1,700 employees in the United States, and a booming business going globally and here in the U.S. Another really important thing to know about Huawei is the massive investment that the company has in research and development. Of the 150,000 global employees that Huawei has, over 70,000 of them are in R&D in some form of engineering. We have 23 R&D centers worldwide, including a very nice R&D center in Santa Clara, California, in the Bay Area, where I'm located. And last year alone, Huawei spent $6.6 billion in R&D. And what this really means is that across the broad portfolio of products that we have, there's just tremendous amount of innovation and investment going on. And you can see some of the stats on the right side when you think about the number of patents that we're issuing and just the number of organizations that we're a member of in terms of standards committees and things that we're doing to help move the pendulum forward with respect to technology and innovation and what's happening in various spaces. Last thing I want to mention is that Huawei, as the $40 billion powerhouse that it is, has a very broad portfolio of products, including products for the data center where we have top-of-rack switching products and servers. We have a great campus and branch set of products, including wireless and campus switching. And then we have a number of products in the UC&C space, including teleconferencing and phone systems and various things like that. We also focus on a number of core verticals, specifically in the United States. We focus very heavily on the education space, also the retail space, and commercial. But today's presentation, just to drill in, is really focused on virtual desktops. And so therefore, we're going to be focused down in the areas where we can provide some value there, and that would be the networking and the server areas in particular. So with that, we're going to go to the first polling question, and one of the things that Dave wanted to find out right from the get-go is if you have some experience with VDI, what are some of the problems that you've experienced with desktop virtualization? And you can actually select as many of these as are appropriate for your experience. So do you have problems with the complexity of the overall offering? Does it cost too much? Are there issues with performance, support, or others? So go ahead and just take a moment to vote, and we'll give everybody about 15-20 seconds to vote, and then we'll share the results. And again, you can vote for more than one here. While everybody's taking a moment to enter their polling results, which we appreciate very much, we also just want to remind one more time that we are recording this and also that we want your questions. So please bring your questions into the Q&A panel, and we will make sure to get those answered at the end of the presentation. Okay, so let's go ahead and share the results. And as you can see, it looks like performance is the biggest challenge that people have experienced. And not too far behind that comes the cost. And then it's kind of a tie between complexity and other. So we'd be kind of interested to find out what those things are. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dave Harmon, who I mentioned is the president of hvConnections. Dave's done a large number of implementations of VDI around various school districts and other kinds of companies. So I think he's a foremost expert on this subject. So Dave, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thanks, Nick. So Dave Harmon, so president of hvConnections. So the presentation we're going to go over today is definitely around VDI and education. Our theme is really a new face of VDI. So I'm going to go over a little bit of overview of what hvConnections is and our relationship between HV and Huawei, and then really kind of discuss some of the pain points that we see in education today. And out of all of our implementations that we have, we're in several markets. We're probably about 80% of our implementations are in the educational arena, which is really cool. And then we'll kind of talk a little bit about the technology. I'm really not going to get into the bits and bytes and the IOPS and the floating point operations and things like that. If that's something you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to myself and my team, and we can definitely talk about kind of all the moving parts and pieces. But really, what I wanted to go over here is a little bit about hvConnections itself. I mean, we were created as a pure engineering effort, about 5 years ago. A group of engineers got together and started, engineering our concepts around virtualization, and VDI was one of the workloads that we really focused on initially. And so after about a year of our R&D efforts and developing our own products, we designed our own servers. We designed what's called purpose-built servers that for VDI server virtualization and storage products, we really started taking off, the following year, 2011, and really has just continued to move forward. We are located, our corporate offices are located in Dallas, Texas, and this is where all the magic happens. We have manufacturing facilities and distribution channels across the Midwest as well. So really, what we really found out and what we've tackled in VDI and education, I entitled this An Oxymoron No More, because typically a lot of the pain points that we see in education about delivering VDI are what we've seen implementations that we've either gone in and fixed or things that we do really well, and what problems we solved is that, the infrastructure costs in the educational space, the budgets just really haven't been there. You typically see we have implementations from school districts that have 500 students all the way to 50, 60,000 students, but we typically have the ability to scale from small to large. So these are some of the pain points that when we have talked and interviewed and during sales and training is these are some of the pain points that we definitely see. And our goal was to tackle these pain points and deliver a solution that would be turnkey and really understand the facet of specifically VDI. And the last bullet's interesting because you've probably seen this as well as we see it all today. There's no silver bullet for VDI. It's not just a server. It's not just storage. It's all the moving parts and pieces. And we'll get into that as we go through the slide presentation. So what we really have done, HVE has created this initiative called VDI One Initiative. And our initiative is really to focus on what we call our version of MSRP. It's got to be manageable, scalable, reproducible, and predictable. There's several software and hardware components that we build into this VDI One initiative that we have to prove out with our solution so that we can do a turnkey, very scalable from small to large implementations, we initially focus on what's called hyper-converged. I don't know if a lot of you have heard. I mean, this is becoming very popular. We do hyper-converged compute for VDI. We also have the option, when starting out very large, that we can do kind of a traditional model with a very common and predictable price point as well. And a lot of our focus has also been around a really true device agnostic solution to access VDI. And this is really big in the school districts with tablets and Chromebooks, everything that's coming out these days. So if you look at what we've aligned, this is our kind of our VDI One technology partners. All of these partners have play a specific role in our overall solution, and we're really proud of this list, and the availability to work with all these different software and hardware vendors and components to make our solutions come to the forefront is really a cool thing from an engineering perspective, and the support you get from the quality of the solution that we're delivering with all the moving parts and pieces. So now it's time for we've got another polling question we wanted to throw out at this point. I guess, Nick, did you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. So
yes.
Now what we want to find out is if you do have experience with VDI, what platforms have you used? So let us know which platform is kind of your primary VDI platform, and just go ahead and select one and let us know, and we'll take a look at the results here. Give you just a couple seconds. By the way, we're already getting a couple of questions coming in from the audience, so thank you for that. Please keep those coming. Dave's going to cover a wide variety of different topics related to VDI, so undoubtedly you guys will come up with some questions, so please present those and Dave will be happy to answer them. We'll give you about another 10 seconds to get your vote in, and then we'll talk about the results real quick. All right. Well, it looks like VMware is the winner there, Dave. 60% of the whole audience has experience with VMware. Kind of a spread across a couple others, and then a handful of the people with no VDI experience. So interesting results. Go ahead and keep pressing forward.
Yeah, thanks. That's kind of what we expected. I mean, we have various forms that we support. I mean, we are from our VDI initiatives. We are based definitely around what we call the VMware software stack for VDI, and there's several reasons behind that. We have other software components that we bring in, but the full stack from desktop virtualization to application virtualization to profile management, it's just a nice cohesive software stack that is able to support. So that is our main go-to market with VDI and our software package. So one of the things that you realize, and I like throwing this up, it's just like when you buy a phone. As soon as you walk out the store with your Galaxy, or an iPhone, there's another one right there. So as soon as you walk out the store, you're already, there's already new technology coming to the market, and that's what we see in virtualization. And this is real important, and we'll talk about this later on, is that we really try to look ahead, in our focus when we build these virtualization solutions. We want solutions for our customers, and especially in education, that 3, 4, 5 years down the road, what we're seeing is that the solutions are still in production. Typically in education, quite a few implementations that we've seen is the hardware and infrastructure that is being purchased is end of life or near end of life technologies in education, and we're really, our designs are geared to not do that, to basically provide next generation technologies and solutions that can fit the needs moving forward to support things that's coming down the pipe in the technologies, right? And this is a question, and I may have another polling question around here, but definitely the priorities and roles for the technologists, especially in education, is changing fast. I mean, it's not just a simple desktop anymore. You have bring your own device technologies, one-to-one initiatives, testing, more and more online testing is coming to play. And these are the things that we understand, and this is what we really see. And another big aspect, and this is, a lot of these numbers here from either, Gardner or reports that we have, I mean, you basically see these are changing priorities. The influx of mobile clients, not only are you seeing things in your network, VDI is just an application that is used from a device to get to a standardized tool for education, right? I mean, or for business or organization applications. And so more and more of the mobile clients or BYOD technology is transitioning where your PC footprint is getting smaller. However, there's more devices that are accessing your network. So that puts strains on, obviously, your wireless network infrastructure and things like that we work with and have a good understanding of how to make our solutions successful. So, and again, the classroom, the teachers, when we go in and we work with our resellers and our technologists on implementations, there's always an assessment process, and it's not so much, again, the bits and bytes, it's use cases and instructional coordinators. What are they going to be using? What tools are they looking at down the road? And this is where you're really seeing is that you're having more and more, web-based, anytime, anywhere. When students can get inspired or educators can get inspired, they can get to their material or to lessons pretty much anywhere. And we're seeing that happening every day in our school districts and higher education. And again, this is something really interesting. You start hearing more and more at conferences about immersive learning, right? Tablets and BYODs. Getting the technology in the hands of the students, again, allows them to learn outside of the classroom. I mean, more and more tools and utilities are coming, so you're immersing technology into them for learning instead of just a kind of a structured classroom, chalkboard type drawings. So what do we do with this, right? I mean, HV solutions, it's just, the VDI solutions that we really have engineered and we work really well with, and our philosophies has really been to deprioritize or try to commoditize the VDI offering to make sure that the turnkey and all the parts and pieces that we put in is make sure that the priorities that we put into VDI are really focused on, you see at the right side, how they access it, how they get to the applications, and really, although the infrastructure is very important, I think as we move forward on here, you'll see that's not really what we try to focus on our implementation, because we know it's just more than that. And I think if you have a chance to look at our videos and case studies, very rarely do they talk about how fast our servers are, how many IOPS we're delivering. Those are just problems that we solved inherently with our solution end to end. So, at this point you see, and I'm curious, these things here will definitely lead to questions, but what we've seen before is, especially in education, is some of the issues that have plagued that schools or organizations have invested in VDI has really the performance problems, the unrealistic total cost of ownership and the return on investment isn't really happening. And then once we've seen the schools or organizations buy a product, they're vendor locked. They can't change. They can add on and try to add solid state technology from that one vendor, or you're locked into a particular type of blade system, and you can't integrate graphics capabilities as you expand it and things like that. So these are some of the problems that we really again is kind of focused on. And here's a chart here that's really interesting, and it just doesn't make sense, especially in education. This was a study. I think it was maybe 1,000, 1,200, maybe 1,500 VDI seats. I think we looked at, but it was over $1.5 million was invested in this solution. However, it was so efficient in power and operations and saving on equipment. There's basically in 11 months, not only did they break even, they were able to gain, by the first year and recoup that. And that just really doesn't make sense in the educational space. Typically, if you had this much to spend, which would be phenomenal, and you spend it on VDI, there's not that much savings in this time period that you could obtain. Maybe longer down the road where you don't have to buy more PCs and things like that. But those are the kind of things that the initial investment is really a killer for education. They just don't have that kind of money. So with HV's approach, I mean, we can scale. We have several customers that start out with maybe 2 or 3 labs, 50 or 100 concurrent sessions. And what we've really seen is, and these are some realistic numbers, the TCO, we want to have the TCO to be very low. The total cost of ownership, when you purchase a VDI solution, our typical average is probably a little over $400, and that's pretty much all in. That's hardware, software, setup, training. The price can fluctuate depending on how you're accessing, if we're repurposing older PCs or you're buying new zero clients and things like that. But this is a pretty predictable cost as you move forward from implementation from 50 to 100 to 200 to 600. Here's a good chart, and it really shows the value of our solution. If I can start out at a very efficient price point, similar to what physical PCs are, and understand VDI is not a one-to-one physical PC replacement. But if I can have a cost model where you have some peaks and valleys, probably from networking, or when I can have a predictive cost model like this, it really makes the expansion and moving forward with VDI, it just makes sense. We have questions. We'll go into implementations, and they'll ask, have you implemented a 10,000-seat VDI, architecture? And I've said, we're sure, but we've done that across 100 school districts, right? So, it's something we do, all day. So now is another good time, I guess, Nick, for another polling question.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yep.
And this is our third and final polling question of the day. And what we want to know is, from your perspective, either implementations that you've been involved with or just things that you've heard about, what do you think is the most important part of a VDI implementation? Is it the storage and networking? Is it the software platform itself? Is it the server compute? Is it support for BYOD? Or is it all of the above? They're all kind of equally important. So go ahead and place your vote, and we'll go ahead and check out the results here in a minute. We are still getting a few more good questions, so again, keep those coming. If you have any other questions, we'd love to hear them. Dave has assured me that he cannot be stumped, so feel free to ask any and all questions. The harder the better. He appreciates it. Dave, it looks like it's a pretty good split between all of the above and storage and networking, and support for those devices the kids and teachers are bringing in also seems to be pretty prevalent. So good info, and we'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
Yeah, real good info, and that's what we see. And we talked earlier, about the silver bullet for VDI, and it is. I mean, our view for successful VDI is all of those things, right? You have to consider everything. We see several times where, we could deliver a storage that could provide, all the IOPS in the world and the best performance. That doesn't do an implementation any good if you don't have the right type of servers or compute that can handle the protocol, provide graphics capabilities, the networking efficiencies for latencies, the support for the protocol, the security, the group policies, AD, BYOD access. All those parts are things that we really consider to be successful. There's not one product out there. It's a culmination of software, hardware, and policies and architecture. So the transformation that we talk about is really, again, really touch on our architecture highlights is that this VDI One initiative is the philosophy we embraced. We embraced this solution by basically what we call taking best-of-breed technologies and challenging vendors to to deliver and provide these technologies, with very high quality, with the cost efficiencies in mind. And so the philosophy encompasses, software, hardware, automation that we build in, and standardized policies is very key. And again, if we develop this solution, and you can go to, the Lindsay ISDs to, the Moss Points to whatever, the hundreds of implementations that we have out there, you're going to see a very common look and feel from infrastructure, to the implementation, to the management. So we really try to focus on kind of a single pane of glass operations. Our implementations, yes, they are based on, we have VMware, we have Microsoft, and do our school districts and our higher ed, do they have a full staff of VMware certified professionals? No, they don't. And so you don't have to be a VMware certified professional to manage our system. We provide training more at the operations layer. How do I, our focus is on when it's test time, how do you deliver an image and you want to deliver that image to 500 devices in your district? Those are the things that we focus on. And then, again, talking about, there's no silver bullet, we know that. And we really try to limit the vendor lock, although HPE and our architecture, we like our components, but there's several times that we've gone into infrastructures and implemented our architecture on top of other vendors' hardware and software because of the investment that they've implemented, and it's proven to be very successful. So this kind of gives you an idea of the technology and the appliances and how, our footprint. This is this was another school district here is for their elementary school. They needed to expand. They didn't really have the money to expand to 700. They loved the technology on the initial implementation, and we were able to expand their technology at a very efficient price point and a very cost saving. So this is just an example of kind of a legacy versus what we're doing with our VDI appliances. And when you see our VDI appliances, I mean, we do design our own servers. They're not an OEM from another big server company. It's our motherboard and it's our design. And Huawei has helped out with the manufacturing and delivery process and the quality process, on this as well. So it's a really nice design that we put in place specifically for VDI. So we basically look at our VDI solutions. There's three paths with our architecture. We have what's called a standalone. We have several school districts that start out with a single appliance. Our appliances are built with a level of quality that you would expect out of it has integrated storage in it. It's a server, it's compute. So it's a level of quality you would get from some type of storage device. So we have several school districts start out with a single appliance. And then as they go on, we can use, stackable. We can have appliances tethered off of existing infrastructures that we have, try to reuse what has already been put in place. Or we have what's called a cloud hotspot. This is really, becoming very popular, the cloud hotspot for kind of branch office or campus servers that can still be managed from a central data system. So, this is our standalone box. I mean, this is everything runs on a single server. You have your VMware servers, monitoring servers, VDI, everything can run as a standalone entity. This is a really popular starter kit. We'll typically start out with this. This will probably handle a couple of labs, and then as the technology becomes more prevalent and more successful, they can expand these environments out rapidly by just adding more servers, more compute, and then rebalancing workloads across the servers. Typically what we see quite a bit is there's been an investment in an infrastructure, and we try to reuse that infrastructure. So most school districts, most organizations, virtualization is common. So we'll try to leverage off, existing infrastructures, move specific workloads, and then utilize our VDI appliances to enhance the capabilities of the virtualization infrastructure. And then what you see is our cloud hotspot. This is something that we're doing quite a bit, and a lot of the rural schools are schools that have campuses, remote campuses. What may happen is that we may have to drop a device at a remote campus, and that campus will have its own server running its own VDI workloads. However, it's still managed from a central pane of glass. And this is something that's part of a lot of our implementations. Typically in the smaller school districts, you may have some networking challenges between campuses and things like that, or remote offices. And then really, again, I think if you look at our focus is that we really focus on the multiple device access, and then what's comprised of a virtual desktop, right? You have the operating system, the applications, and then the user data, and the data, their profile, and their applications they use. That's the part that we utilize within the VMware stack. With some of the, they have what's called a Horizon workspace, so we can actually have the user data follow the user around, but I don't need to have, if I have 1,000 students, I don't need 1,000 VDI sessions. You probably need 600, because we usually see about a 60% concurrency rate in education. So I can have 1,000 or 4,000 files or containers for user data. However, I don't need to provide a one-to-one mapping for a virtual desktop. That saves on licensing, it saves on compute, and it reduces your overall cost footprint. So really where we're at and what we've done, it's really an end-to-end VDI solution. When we mean turnkey, it's turnkey. The automation, the policies, the training, the architecture that put in handles things like Chromebooks. How do you access Chromebooks? What group policies and Active Directories do you have? How do you provision the server? So it's when we have an implementation, it's end to end, and that makes it really nice, right? It's not just one component that we're focused on. So things like lab transformation. Here's a prime example. The older lab transitioned to a newer lab. These were zero clients, and some of them were repurposed with new monitors. But those are the things that we focus on. And again, Chromebooks are the Google education and the Chromebooks are coming predominant. I mean, we're seeing the transition very fast in school districts because of the availability and the price point. And actually myself and I've got my engineers, I'm forcing them, that's all we use is Chromebooks now in our day-to-day operations. And actually this presentation is running off of a VDI session within a Chrome OS. So it's something that we've adopted. We've been working the past couple of years to utilize that. and having a Chromebook running 3D graphics rendering on our 3D graphics server is a pretty cool thing to do in education as well. So, here's our one slide with some of our parts and pieces. This would probably be one of our larger implementations. Our typical size, I mean, this, having, a 60% concurrent user rate, I mean, you're probably seeing 3,000 to 4,000 devices spread across the district for this one implementation. We typically start out or see our environments grow from 50, 100, 200 to maybe 1,000, and then it's kind of slow roll here. So here's an example of kind of how our architecture and our footprint would look like on a 2,000 VDI user pod. Here's some of the specs that we use with our compute servers, and storage here is really used for user data, high availability of user data, control servers, images and backups. So real quick, I think I got a couple more slides here. This is just a typical profile. So Lindsay ISD, they're located in North Texas, close to Oklahoma border. I think they have about 600 students. This was a very typical implementation that we did. Their IT infrastructure person and support was basically the finance director. So she was definitely wearing many hats. And so we did a very successful implementation at Lindsay a couple years ago, and it really fit their needs. And this was, one of many testimonials that we have is that, the understanding of reusing their existing infrastructure and to use VDI, allows them to to spend their money wisely and not spending all their money just for one type of thing. They can spread the money, get the big bang for their dollar, and continue to have technology that's going to evolve and help them down the road. So I guess with that said, one of the last slides here, you can go to our hvConnections websites. We have several YouTube videos and case studies and what we've done, really across the U.S. and predominantly in the Southeast. Some really good information to really back what our stories are and what our implementation means in the educational space. And I think with that, I think that's pretty much it, Nick.
Dave, excellent. We did get quite a few questions, so I just wanted to go ahead and ask you some of those. The first one is, what are some of the most common mistakes that you've seen with customers who have failed to deploy VDI properly? So the question is really, if you've walked into an environment where they've tried to put something in place and it really wasn't working very well, what's the most common issues that you've run across?
I would say the biggest issue is not providing the right capacity and performance or understanding what that's going to be. Having these many workloads and desktops being put in or trying to bring up hundreds of desktops, you really have to have the infrastructure to support about 100 IOPS. That's IOs per second. So we see a lot of under capacity in the storage area. Is probably the bigger piece, and then after that it's probably the complexity of this package that was just dropped off. Here's the manual, go after it, right? So especially in education, it can be a very complex system. To put in place, you've got to understand all the moving parts and pieces. So
excellent. The next one is there a specific VDI platform that you recommend over all the others, and any platforms you suggest that we avoid completely, and kind of just why you make those recommendations?
Yeah, I won't really bash any of the competition per se, but I think the platforms, obviously our HVE purpose-built platform is obviously what we recommend, but any platforms that you have to integrate, you got to make sure you have the right architecture. Anything that has all solid-state type technology, Haswell CPUs, technologies that can support things like AutoCAD and Rivet and newer technologies, and those are the things that we do from a platform perspective. And using a common software stack, that's when I mean common, something that is evolving. We've tried several technologies, several pieces of software. VMware has a very mature, software implementation that's growing and very feature rich. And again, with educational demands and technology to get the United States, math and science and things around AutoCAD and new software packages with Adobe and so forth. Having a platform that not only can work for you now, but has the capabilities to expand in the future that can give you the right performance. I would say anything that has, we don't do any spinning drives in any of our product. Storage is a very important part of our solution. So anytime you hear you only need 15 IOPS per desktop, that's probably a storage vendor that's trying to sell you their storage. That's not going to work. We recommend 100 IOPS per desktop.
Excellent. Really good. I'm not sure if you're familiar throwing out any kind of ballpark pricing, but this question says, can you give some sort of cost estimate for 500 or 1,000 desktop VDI implementations? So that may be something you want to take on an individual basis and really understand the details, but they're just asking if you can throw out any kind of just rough ballpark to give a general feel.
Yeah, I mean, we advertise in our implementations, and you know, the software licensing is the thing that can drive it up. And I think I had a slide in here. Yeah, I think it's this one right here. On average, I mean, you could typically see, you know, let's say all in $400 a desktop. Or I've got another slide here that the finance put together. So the per desktop cost, if you're comparing physical, so here you are. And I think that's pretty accurate. I'm not allowed to quote anymore, but you know, a $350 to $450 price range is a good, you know, per desktop. So take the amount of desktops or how many concurrent users you're going to have and multiply it by, let's say, 400, can give you a ballpark estimate of where we're at typically. But it all depends on the type of workloads. And you know, typically in education you have a kind of a standard lab workload, but with things like AutoCAD again and CS6, and you could have a little bit heavier workload that lowers the density that drives the cost up. So, but this is a good average point that we use. So 1,000, what's that, 400,000 basically for 1,000 concurrent users.
Okay, I think that's fair. You mentioned AutoCAD. One of the questions that just came in says, can you virtualize things like Revit or AutoCAD? Most companies say this is impossible. You know, can it be done? So give us a feel about some of those kind of applications that have historically been thought not to be possible to be delivered over VDI. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, that is a great question, because that is something that's really near and dear to our heart. We've been working actually the past year and a half on developing a hardware solution with things like NVIDIA and Intel. This was, we feel, the last kind of piece of the puzzle for VDI that they were missing the 3D. So that's something we do. We're doing it right now. We actually just finished an implementation with things like in education you hear about STEM program. Yeah, that's something that we focused on, and we can do that. We're doing it. I think we had our hardware release was in April, and the final piece of the puzzle was vSphere 6. But that is definitely something we do, and we're doing it really well in engineering companies and educational space. So we're real excited about that product. So that was a great question.
Great. Next one must be some kind of partner that's on the webinar, because he's saying, where can I get more information about the Huawei Partner Program? So I'll just tell you, if you go to Huawei's main website, which is HuaweiEnterpriseUSA.com, and that's one that we had up on the screen here a minute ago, so you can see the URL there. Basically, you go there and you just go to the partner page and you can apply to be a partner. It's a very quick and seamless operation. Typically takes less than a day, and then you can gain access to a lot of specific partner kinds of information like pricing and also training materials. You can register deals there, things like that. So it's definitely worthwhile doing. Looks like we have one last question, unless any other ones come in, and this one is, how can I see a live demo of the HVE VDI solutions? And by the way, Dave, if I'm not mistaken, you're actually using a virtual desktop to do this presentation. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I can. I guess I can share this with her. We have an environment. It's a desktop as a service. We actually can hand out access to this environment. Our contact ourselves, and we can have that here. I wanted to see if I share this environment. Okay, cool. Well, I don't know if everybody can see this, but this is a live demo. This is accessed our VDI environment through a Chrome interface.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so this interface here. If you want to send me an email, this interface is. Let's go back here. This interface here, Daz, I'll go back here. This is our HTML5 interface. So we have it's called Desktop as a Service, and this is our this is our offering that we set up our users. We actually use this also in for our customers to vent out their software and their images to make sure it's going to function correctly. And then you can have access to this environment and actually test software. One of the things we have, I mean, this is our 202 server. We're running some heavy workloads right now. I mean, we're actually running some heavy workloads, some 3D workloads to test rendering. I'll just give you a live, here's a live demo. So this is running a VDI within a VDI, kind of weird, right? But here is a, so we're running at about a 90% capacity here, and here's a, I don't know if you're getting the same effect through the web interface, but this is a 3D rendering we're doing, testing out a software package for one of our school districts during a heavy workload. So we can definitely have a live demo, and I think the best demo is getting technology in your hands, our customer hands, before they purchase to see how it's going to perform and how it's going to look and feel. So there's a live demo. I guess if you need more, you can contact us you can contact me directly, Eric Cunningham's our CMO, or contact our sales hotlines, and we'll get our resellers in your area to give you a call.
Excellent, excellent. And by the way, Dave, that showed up really well. We could see the object spinning on the screen in real time, and it would look pretty smooth, so that was great. Thanks for doing that. Well, look, that's about all the questions that we have. We want to be mindful of everybody's time, so I just want to thank everyone again for taking time out of their day to come and learn a little bit about virtual desktops. And as promised, we brought a true guru on the topic, and if you're interested in getting a VDI implementation going, HVE is really the company to deal with. Huawei's worked with these guys for a number of years, and they're just really great at what they do and fun to work with. So hats off to Dave Harmon for helping us drive the content of the presentation, and hopefully we'll see you guys again very soon on another Huawei webinar. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody.